I may say, before, as we get started here, I'll just kind of give you a lowdown of how a lot of people know how I got started on knives. 1978, as a jeweler, my brother and I had a brother-in-law, all three of us, and an uncle, there's actually four of us, would sit out on the side of my shop and would, for lunch, we had a picnic table there at my house there, I had a shop behind my place. We would start flicking our knives at this old tree that used to be by the bench there. It was a pastime. And ended up cracking the handle on one of my knives. It was a 112. And about 4 weeks later, the handle piece fell out and I couldn't find it. I glue another piece of wood back in there. That didn't happen. I ended up prying the handle off and used some scrap pieces at my desk. And I used to go throughout Arizona. I had about six customers who owned Indian Arts and Craft Gallery. That's where my jewelry work went at the time. And I would see them every week. I would go over there and I showed them my knife. And they encouraged the encouragement. You could tell, like, I like that. So that prompted me to buy some knives from a small store. There's an L Smith hardware store in Phoenix, Arizona. And I bought a lot of these knife blanks from them. And I sold them in Arizona. And people sold quite quickly and quick. The inlaid ones, I didn't have no cutouts back then. Cutouts came later on. I knew a gentleman in Scottsdale who had an Arabian horse ranch, and he really loved Indian arts and crafts. He liked myself and my father, and he invited us there every year at the Arabian horse show to set up a little table there. It was our work, and he always brought his friends, there and told them, hey. So he was always really gracious in that mode. He loved Indian arts and crafts, so he promoted it the best he could. And I showed him my knife. He said, boy, I like that. He said, can you put a horse in there? I said, well, I don't know. And the horse was actually just cut out. It didn't look real pretty when I got it into it. I did finally get it in there, and I liked it. That prompted me to continue working, putting metal inlays into my work. And it was probably a year and a half of effort and experimentation before I found out how to cut correctly, how to train myself to get the fit in there just perfect. So when you look at it, you won't see any gaps. It took about a year and a half at the bench to learn that. And that's how the actual cutouts became part of my inlays. So it was most of my inlays were all out of request. Hey, could you do this or that? And about half of them were done that way. The other half was just me experimenting at the bench, just playing with different materials and different inlays until something looked good to my eye. People wanted engraved bolsters, and I didn't care too much to learn how to do scroll work, and it just looked pretty complicated. So I developed my own texture work that matched what I did. So it basically created what we see here. Took years and years for this particular piece to come. As you see it today, a more refined look to it. Over years of refinement. And that's, you'll see in this slideshow presentation that Gene here will marinate it and let you folks, he'll talk about some of the knives when they're made and how that goes along. And while he's doing that, while we're watching that, I'll let you know. I'll send the saw out and I'll take a look at it along with the cutout. They cut out just earlier downstairs in front of everybody, and you kind of get an idea of kind of what it looks like. Some of you have seen them, some of you haven't. Ones that I haven't. take a look at it. Let's pass it along. Right here, first of all.
There's the work right now.
I'll let Gene take it over from here and let you know that, you know, if it wasn't for all you folks interested in what I do, I probably wouldn't be able to do and continue to educate myself at my bench is what I enjoy doing, and when for everybody to be able to support me in that wouldn't be possible. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for that, for your interest in our work. Thank you. Jane?
I've got a slideshow that kind of contrasts the first 25 years of the 112 and help you identify the age of the knife. We go back to 1978 when he first started, so you'll be able to take and see how he progressed through. And on page 2 and 3 of the handout, it kind of shows you, or it helps you identify the age of the knife a little bit. And take and watch the slideshow, you'll be able to relate back to it. I'm kind of a Yellowhorse addict, so if you have any questions, you can kind of go. I get mesmerized watching the slideshow at times. This is one of the earliest ones that he did. You notice that the turquoise is smaller pieces instead of full pieces that he cut out for the knives. This is when he was first transitioning. The hand engraved by David Yellowhorse on each knife. Also, you can see from the blade there's no nail nick, so it kind of helps to date it. Again, these are smaller pieces of stones that he's used, hand engraved. One of his experiments, he tried a lot of different things to find out what he liked and what his customers would like. I believe this is one that his crew did up for him for his birthday. Now it's got the sun face engraved on the bolsters. This is something he started to do to enhance it. Nowadays we call that the front side of the knife. And he uses jewelry stamp to take and engrave or stamp his name in there. This is the back side of the knife. You know, he's still trying to get the feel of how he wanted to take and develop his business, what he wanted to do for the knife's regimentation. These pieces of stone are getting bigger. This is an earlier fancy lacy. It's a knife he did, I think, about 60 of over a period of years. It's an upgrade over the standard knives he did. It came with a handmade leather sheath, and he had them engraved by David Yellowhorse by Coast to Coast Trophy down in Phoenix. This is another version of the fancy lacy. They engraved by David Yellowhorse and stripped on the blade. It was basically one knife, but the patterns weren't always the same. He always varied it depending on what stone patterns he had, or what stone material he had, and how creative he felt. The top one uses a thinner piece of brass in the center. The bottom one uses a thicker piece. And you can also use the date stamp, time stamps on the blade to try to get a time frame of when the knife was made. And he got his knives from a local hardware store. The 110 that I picked up, a lot older knife than when Dave started, because I think it was back in the 60s somewhere. He did it up, the blade got polished. sun face is one thing you'll see on some of his knives. Sometimes you'll just see that sometimes instead of the signature. It's usually only on one side or the other, front and rear bolster. Stone format's starting to get bigger now as we get towards the early 80s. He's transitioning from jewelry into the knife business more. Patterns will still vary. This one is one I couldn't figure out. It's got a mirror polished blade to it, but it's an old style inlay. I don't know if the blade was changed afterwards or it's a knife he did earlier. And then he got his own machine in the 90s to take and do it. This is a Lacey. This is the first standardized design that he did. The earlier knives are on a satin blade, and you'll see it stamped on the rear bolster. And of course, his most popular one, the Horse, which he did the most of. He first did that in 1983, and I think it was about 87 that Buck picked it up, put it in the catalog. So that was one of the curves that I had to work through to figure out how come Buck was showing a different set of numbers and time frame than what Dave had. It's the F-15 and the F-16. Smokey Mountains has one of those downstairs for sale. And Buffalo. Some of these earlier designs he did for Sharper Image, this was done for Ender's Supply. There was only 100 knives, but somehow or another they got an extra zero in the serialization. There he's got a piece of mother of pearl on the bolster, a little bit new that he's trying out. California was where they had most customers send in the reply card. Texas was second. This is a later variation of the Texas one. The stone format's a little bit different, and there's no texturing around the state of Texas. In the center, Arizona was known as the Copper State back when he made the knife. The Grand Canyon, I guess, was discovered a little bit later.
They changed the name on it. It used to be called the Copper State, and then they changed it to Grand Canyon State.
The Nay has the blade etching that Dave did. It didn't texture to the bolsters, but the ironwood on the design was sandblasted, so it raised up the grain in the wood. Very unique knife. There's a white-tailed deer and the bass were done for Bass Pro Shops. So the Virginia whitetail, the state of Virginia is in the background. Flying turkey or turkey in flight, and the fighting turkey. This is the second version of the Confederate flag. Don't know a whole lot about it. This one had the nickel bolsters where the other one had the regular brass. They're both identified as the second edition. Adds to the fun of collecting, I guess. This was a knife that somebody up in the shop did up for one of their employees. Had a Confederate flag on one side, American flag on the other. And it was done as a tribute to the employee. Started getting Dave back on buck knives after a trip with United, is one he did for me. So the raccoon, coming up to be the dream chaser. There's 162 pieces on each side. Most labor intense knife. One of Brian's first knives that he did. He did 3 of them. Both a Pelly, Bear, and Eagle. And it's one of the club knives running together. Signed by both Dave and Brian. His brother Alvin is in the jewelry business, and got the sun face on one side and Monument Valley on the other. A lot of intricate detail. And his son Ron did the 112, kind of a prototype knife on the set that he ended up coming out in 110s. And one for the Buck Catalog, Free Spirit. That's one Brian did. Eagle Dancer. The 109s, which is basically a chip flip 112. The first one was the Chief. They wanted it to be signed on the front. Dave prefers to sign it on the back side. The old buck needs to be highlighted because it looks better. Same knife that he carries, this butter knife. Prototype that he did had the black chip flint blade. And one white Rising Wisdom that they ended up producing some. They're tougher to find. Iwo Jima tribute done for America Remembers. This knife went with this pattern, went with the gun. The red, white, and blue was sold as an individual. Another one that his son Ron did. A lot of detail in it. And another club knife. Ryan, he did this one as the man of he'll try anything, just to experiment, see what he likes, see what works. It's a flag knife that Ron did. Another one that Dave did, version where you have the textured black jet. Brian, he's number 2 son. Picture of Dave working in his old shop. Gonna get the best of that machine. And he did. He's still good at being a silversmith, and here he's working on a belt buckle. Hands-on in the shop, gets involved in all aspects of the operation. Polishing. He gets in, he does his hand engraving on, he's working on a belt buckle there. Number 3 son Ron, he's working on getting a piece for Rudolph's nose. You can see the knife in the display outside. You see the fine texture and detail work that they do. It's Dave's shop in the foreground. That's to wake up each day and take a look out and see that beautiful mountain. Got a couple of pictures of Brian working. Call him a part-time knife maker because he's hard to catch up with. He has a little bit different style than what Dave does. That's the end of the slideshow.
Anybody get cards? Okay. Somewhere up here. Last one's right here. If anybody wants to take an extra. There was early in my knife working experiences I've had to mention probably 3 people that that learned about it in business bigger than me, because I was just a craftsman in a small shop doing what I love to do. The first person to really pick me up to go kind of nationwide was. His name was Richard Dahlhanger. He owned a company called The Sharper Image. And he read a little article about me in a magazine, a knife journal, and he says to his buyers, find this guy. And they found me. And the lady said that she was interested in, Richard Dahlhanger was interested in putting knives in his catalog. And we discussed it, and they wanted 700, she called it units. They have their own lingo, I call them knives. You want 700 knives? Boy, I'm thinking, boy, I don't know about this. So she sent me, she said, I'll send you a vendor pack and we'll go over the details. I said, okay. I got the vendor pack a couple of days later from, it was San Francisco, about this thick. And I had terms, 120 days, a lot of stuff in there, product liability insurance. There was so much stuff in there, I got a headache after the first page. So I called her up and I said, ma'am, I said, I can't do this. She goes, well, what paragraph can you not do? And I can't do anything like this. I mean, so, Mr. Yellowhorse, do you realize how much money we're talking about here? And I said, ma'am, it doesn't matter how much money it is. I'm going to disappoint you. And I don't want to do that. There's not enough money in the world, for me to disappoint you. And she said, wow. She said, Mr. Yellowhorse, I've never run into this before. I have to talk to my supervisor. And I said, okay.
And the supervisor, I guess you talked to the supervisor, and the supervisor said, this is Richard Bellheimer's thing, you know, they're go talk to the president, you know. So she went over there and told him exactly what I said. And he said, huh. He said, I'll tell you what, you tell Mr. Yellowhorse whatever he needs, he has. We want his product in our catalog. So it was doable. I couldn't make that many. I promised to make about 300, half of them, 300. And I was able to do that. And they got my first national exposure was through them. And it worked out really well for us for me this year. My first real dealings with Buck, a little L&L Smith hardware store and another store, sporting goods store that handled Buck knives. I was running them out of knives. And this is retail. They give me 10% off. 112, I think, was about $15 over the counter back then, $16, something like that. And they weren't keeping up with my demand. So at 83, I found out who the company, who the president was of Buck Knives. I wrote him a letter and made a knife and sent it to Alabama. Al called me the next day that he received my knife. He said, Mr. Yellowhorse, I said, I like your work. He says, what can we do for you? And I said, well, I like to buy knives directly from you. And he said, well, he says, okay, do you have a store? And I go, no, I just have a house, a shop in the back, and work where I work on these. I sell them to other stores. He said, well, it's a peculiar situation. We only sell to stores. He says, I have my own rules and bylaws in my company that I even have to abide by. He says, I don't break those, but, break those rules. And I go, well, I understand. He goes, but hold on. He said, let me think on this. Good night, and I'll get back with you tomorrow. And he got back with me. He says, Dave, he says, you take these handles off? I go, yes, sir. He goes, well, he says, how about if we could supply these without no handles to you? Would you be interested? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, it's not a finished knife. I can there's a loophole in my own law. There's no way you can put another handle back on and hurt our retail. I said, fair enough, that'd be good. He said, I can save you $1.80 to boot. So that's how I got started, dealing with Buck knives. Yeah, the things were going well, and I thought that, I'm going to go out on a limb. It was about a year later, I think it was '84. I was going to go out on a limb, build my own brochure. I spent $1,000 on this little one-color brochure, and that was a lot of money for me back then. And I thought, well, I hope I know what I'm doing. But anyway, I come out with that, and I called Buck Knives. I had this, because I was to get I handpicked all my customers out of phone books. You go to the library, and then I'd have to get one of those zip code books to match up, their zip codes with their addresses. And I handpicked several people, but I only handpicked maybe 40, and I got a stack of brochures still this big. I had this wild idea that maybe Buck Knives would share maybe their customer list with me or something. So I called him. He told me I needed to talk to Jim Bloom, and he was out. He said, talk to his assistant, Charlie Gregory. So I talked to him. And he says, Mr. Yellowhorse, he says, what zip code are you interested in? I go, all of them. I don't think you're big enough to handle our whole clientele. And he said, but besides, I don't think our policy is quite where we just hand out our customer list. And I go, well, I understand that. Well, it's worth a try to give you a call anyway. Because I heard of your work. He said, why don't you send me a sample? Maybe we can do something for you. I did. And he called me back and he said, Dave, he says, this beautiful work, how much are they? I told him, he goes, I want 500 of them. 500? He goes, yeah, it's going to take me a while. I says, well, just get them to me as fast as you can. So I sent him 100 out, called him, I said, get that 100? He goes, yeah, they're all coming. Just like that. Oh, okay. I guess I can start on the other 100. He goes, yeah, hurry up. So I just said to him, call him up, you know, because I'm gauging when he's going to stop, you know. I said 500. I just, gosh, that's a lot of knives, you know. So anyway, we got through the 500, and I called him up after the last shipment and gave him a few days. Said, you know, how'd they all, you know, how'd you like them? How'd your customers like them? He said, they love them. He said, they're all gone. He said, I want to order 500 more. Boy, we'll be busy for a while. That's how our association got started. And those are probably three of the people that really impressed me early on was Richard Thalheimer, you know, just the way they acted. Because they were big business. You know, they didn't need me. They just liked what they had, what they seen, and wanted it no matter what. You know. Same with Al Buck, and the same, you know, with the same demeanor, and the same with Charlie Gregory. And those, you know, those were my first big dealings with the bigger, appropriate businessmen. You know that you know, craftsmen and real businessmen were different because you had people who were craftsmen and their business ethics and stuff go, you know, that's secondary, you know, it just doesn't work out to be professionals at both parts of it. But good memories. That was probably about 83 when that was taking place. But it all just started from just cracking the handle on my own and put some materials in it. And that's how I got started. Believe me, I never thought I'd have an employee in my life either. My brother got out of high school, didn't know what to do. Told him, come on over here, I'll put you to work, you know, until you find something. And he never left. Same way, of course. Don't come over here. I'm trying to help my family out, and it just it never left. It became more like a job, you know. Now I'm a craftsman and a businessman and an employer. You know, it's quite, you know, well, I had my youth too, so that helped me out. So I'd be working there as well hard Friday night, finishing up knives, ready to do a show in Powell or something in California. We were in Flagstaff. I did different Indian awesome craft shows, and then be back there Sunday, you know, to unpack and do it all over again. So I think most everybody in this room can kind of relate to that, you know, in their lives and working hard. Just kind of sharing a little bit earlier times with the those knives and how it all got started. And like I said earlier, I appreciate everyone who come to our show and supported us always. Thank you very much. We've got some extra ones here. Anybody have any questions or anything, we'd be happy to answer. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Where do you live?
I live near Gallup, New Mexico.
Near Gallup?
20 miles from Gallup. I'm on the Arizona side by 700 yards or so.
Well, you had said something about in Phoenix, and I just wondered if
I've been there. That's where I'm from, is Lufkin, Arizona. I've been back there after about 20 years in Phoenix. So now I'm close to the state line, you know. Arizona wants me to just jump over like that.
sounds good.
Feel safe right there.
Well, you're not having to show identification, though.
No. We did have, you know, I get a number of people that come through there that's collected my knives or known, you know, of my knives, and they see we have several trading posts there, my family does, and they stop there, and, you know, and they ask, you know, if they know David Yellowhorse, the knife guy, you know, and yeah, that's my son, he's around back. Around back. Yeah, and I had a guy from Detroit a while back come in, and he said, boy, Mr. Yellowhorse, we've been having a tough time. They said our unemployment is about 10% back there, and everybody's losing their job. And I said, well, I'm really sorry. He goes, how's it over here? And I said, well, we've had 67% unemployment on our reservation since the 1800s. Average income's about 6,500 a year, so you know we haven't felt it over here yet. So he scratched his head and thought about it and thought, well, I don't feel so bad. We feel like we're living in a third world country over there. It's a unique land, full of diversity. Gosh, it's just really neat. A lot of open land, stuff like that. And work might not be plentiful there, but now people are very resilient. They live off the land. You know, they corn, they raise sheep. They're pretty self-efficient. You know, when people would ask me, when we come to our house, that lady down there, she don't have electricity enough to live in that hogan. I feel bad. I said, well, she don't feel bad. That's what she likes. She's an elder. She don't like all these, new modern things. I said, besides, I said, you got to see her out there, fire hogan. Our electricity, something happens, and it goes off for a couple hours. We're running around here looking for ice and trying to get everything settled down, and she don't even know anything even happened. And so, it's a trade-off, and she's very happy. I remember as a kid going to school there, the electric people used to come in and have like a get-together like this. And they would show us, the switch, and they turn it on, the light come on, turn it off. They were selling us kids on new modern, you got to get hooked up. By doing that hooked up, you got to go to work. Real work. They don't take too many. They got too many hand-woven rugs already, and it's all over everything. They can't take any more for payment. So, those are some of the trade-offs that you have living there. You either modernize or you're not. So the elders are not always. They try to pocket. They like the convenience. They pocket a lot. And it's, and a lot of us get kind of anxietied out because our leadership there, our elders, and they're old-fashioned. You got young people saying, hey, let's move, and they're saying, no, let's stay. So, it's a back and forth, balance to modernization or our culture. Which one is it? So it is continuing to pull apart that. Yes, sir.
I think Gene said you had an old shop he was showing. Have you built a new shop?
Yeah. My sister, her husband needed to go to school down in Tucson. Yeah, so we stayed with I kept my shop there. Built another one for quite a while. Never moved into it. He was wanting to be like a physician's assistant, like a doctor. And as soon as they got back, got settled in and back to the shop and taking care of my father, then I was able to move to my new shop. It's 1,200 square feet. Gives me more elbow room, not elbowing everybody. They're waiting for my desk going, oh man, I'm in the mood, and but I'm respectful. I just let people do their own thing. I didn't have to share my desk. I don't have to share it anymore as much anyway. So it's a lot better. I like it. I'm still close to my dad. I'm only about half a mile down the road. So my sister's with them every day. She pays shopping there. She takes care of it pretty good. Yes, sir.
I notice you travel quite a bit now to events like this for us, and
Yeah.
When you first started working knives, did you ever dream you was going to travel this much and
Yeah.
have you found that you enjoy it?
I'm enjoying it a lot more because I don't have to race around comparing. You know, I used to get, when I look back, I was really stressed out. But when I would, I would race to the last minute of the hour, 1:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, and I'm back, but just like want to take my last pieces. I could sell that if I just polish it up, and that's what you do. And then you drive all night, and you set up, in the morning, at 10 o'clock when you get there, and then you sleep for about 10 hours after that. But I enjoyed that part of it. Wouldn't change it for anything because it taught me a lot. You had to be able to do it. And so everything has its time. And it's time for me to be at these places to help. I can help in any way. I'll do it. Because, it's been a big asset in my life, and has promoted a lot of my work. That's what I do. And seeing everybody, that do the same thing. You guys are here for the same reasons. So, it's a big family, and a good family to be part of. Proud to be a part of it.
When you're flying, what do you do about transportation of your knives?
Oh, I just
airline?
I stick them in my. What I do is I box them in boxes. I tape them and put on there. My tools, David Yellowhorse. Way they're not just curious tools.
Yeah.
Well, they are tools. What people do. And that's how I do it. I have never lost anything on the airline. I don't know why, but maybe it's just because it doesn't look all that great. The old box, make sure it's very yucky looking. Open it. If they knew what was inside, they'd be smoking on. Probably, it's hard to say. That's how I do it. It works. Worked so far. Yeah. I one time went to the first time going to Paris. I was supposed to meet Charlie Gregory, which was director of marketing Buck at the time. He was selling some knives to the military in Spain, and I was meeting him there the first time. I get over there, my plane's about 11 hours late, and I asked him, how could you do that, 11 hours. Anyway, we're at 11 hours late, and I'm having these two big old Pelican cases that were full of engraver ball and a lot of tools as we do some demonstrations there. And they held me there. Just rushed me into this room and asked me all kinds of questions and stuff. And I couldn't hardly understand broken English and just, I couldn't, and I was like, what to say, you guys. They thought I was going to set up on the street or something. And finally, this one guy ushered, he comes in about a half hour later, and he spoke pretty good English and asked what was going on. I told him it was silversmith and jeweler, about Native American from Arizona, and he did some demonstrations. He goes, oh, oui, monsieur. He tells this guy, dancing with wolves. He goes, oh, dancing with wolves. That was the time, that was like 90 or 91, right when that show started getting there. They're packing me up, throwing everything. That was a pretty good experience because I've never experienced it, really outside of Arizona too much, So it's quite an experience for me, in a different country at that. Yes,
Do you make your own cases for your knives?
sometimes, yeah. I do a little leather work. I used to do a lot more leather work, but You know, you just kind of spread yourself too thin. You start backing off, say, what am I doing? Just got to concentrate on, you know, on.
I was curious about your case.
Yeah.
Poultry.
Oh, not a whole lot. There's a bolt in here. It basically opens it up. Oh. You know,
Because I was looking, I was like,
this is an old design, built in '91. A lot of other people looked at it. There's other people that did this particular design a few times. I didn't like how it did it, but it, you know, they tried to sell it for a bit. I showed it to my lawyer people and Slippy, you know, back then, switchblades and all. So I never messed with it. I like it fine. Never came out with it. I've seen people come out with them, but you know. But anyway, obviously it worked out pretty good. Yeah.
Not your dad up in the corner?
Yes, my father Frank, and my brother Alvin, and the center one was me when I was 9. I used to give, in the summertime, this was Route 66 at the time, before the freeway, I-40 went through. I used to give tourist kids rides on my donkey for a quarter. I made a lot of money in the summertime now. I had a lot of interesting people from the cities, you know, because you were curious about them. You've never been there yourself. So when you talk to them, they tell you where they're from. It was pretty interesting. I had horses back then that you couldn't get a city slicker on them. They'd bite you if you turn your back on them, they'd bite and kick you and all that stuff. So it was the tamest thing I had was a burro donkey. We didn't have saddles. My uncle gave me the saddle and we used that those summers, you know. He used that saddle in parades and Flagstaff. He used to go to parades for Fourth of July parade. I was an old trading post, and that was 1965. I was 9 years old. There was a sign, the neatest memory of that, there was a sign on the side of it. There was a buffalo pen. I used to have to feed these buffalo, or 5 buffalo in there. And I got them trained to come to the corner. They would always, early in the morning, I put another leaf of hay right there in the corner. So that when I first got, I'd have a number of kids around me, and it was hard to break the ice. None of them would want to go, you know. So I'd have to tell, hey, who wants to go for a free ride? I do. I'd get somebody on there, you know. I do it for free, you know, because we're all just standing around this. I'm not even saying that. I look at the burro and look at me, you know. How do I break the ice? Well, I learned, hey, you know, who wants to ride? Free. You know, boom. Get somebody on there. Get him around that corner. It would be just quiet because we wouldn't know each other. Get around the corner and he'd be this far from a big 1,200-pound buffalo, you know. And that's what break the ice, you know. It's just the talking the whole way after that. Because we had some Malatuses and some hogans and stuff. And we had other animals in the back. I'd take them around and get them around. When I got them back around, I always tell them, hey, don't say anything about the buffalo, okay? And he goes, all right. As soon as he get off, him in his own, you know, with the rest, you know, there, he said, man, you got to do this ride, man. This was really neat. And that's what got it started. quarter right after that. Pretty good. Yeah. And this particular picture, there's 2 of them. One with me sitting on the donkey, the other one being home in the range. There was a tourist lady that sent this to me. We sent it back to our family. So we didn't take a lot of pictures back then. We just didn't. We lived there. It was part of our lives. We went out there taking pictures of ourselves. This person that sent these pictures to us say, here's some pictures of you, you know. And it wasn't too long after their vacation was over. These pictures we took. Back in the 60s, you have to remember, the further back east the people came through, more a little hesitant about meeting people.
our signs would read, you know, stop at Chief Yellowhorse, just ahead, friendly Navajo, you know. And the wife would say, I don't know about this, let's keep going. Can't be that bad. No, let's keep going. So we keep on going. So a few of them, you know, that do stop, you know, I said, oh, I had a hard time talking to my wife. Wouldn't stop. My uncles and dad are always asking why. I said, well, Indians, you know. You know, we're in the West, you know, because there's a big spans out there back in between, not real densely populated like before the issue went. And so my uncle, he was a real entrepreneur. His name was Yellowhorse. And he says, you know, we need to change our signs. So first sign he put up, it said, stop at Chief Yellowhorse, friendly Navajo. It said, we don't sell a moccasin, just cheap combat boots. A couple of them laughed. Oh, can't be that bad. The next sign is probably his all-time favorite that I remember. It said, stop at Chief Yellowhorse, friendly Navajo, just ahead. It said, we know scalp 'em paleface, just scalp 'em wallet. That's how, you know, that's how my dad and my uncles really developed the trading post back in the 60s that way. And because they love people, you know, I mean, but to get them to understand that, to get people comfortable about that, that was one of their thinking way of doing it, changing the signs and doing it that way. And it's the well, you can't be that bad and making us laugh, you know. So that's how I got started.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, Kevin, thank you.
I'm actually leaving. Like I said last night, I collected the artifacts. So there's the 32nd annual show that I'm going to do, and I've been like 28 of them. And I'm sorry that I will be here tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, have a good time.
I will. Lined up and all these deals, and it's kind of like your organization, you know. I've got 30-something year friends in there. We all kind of grown up in a collective. You're in good hands with this man. Like I said last night, his art is just phenomenal. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody. Thank CJ.
And thank you for this place.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I hope that some of the stories that I've shared today, you've told it many times. And new faces, it's always a joy to be able to tell again. People laughs, it's a good time.
Who came up with the idea of painting all the pictures on the rocks?
Well, that was, I believe, my uncle's idea. Yeah. And you know, it gets a lot of tourist people to come over down. Boy, they love it. They love it a lot. Yeah. They enjoy it. We put the animals up on the ledges. They're made out of fiberglass. And a lot of people ask me, how do you get them up there? They're not that heavy. You just take a few people and get them up there. Yeah.
We know that you do a lot of jewelry. Are you still doing private commission work? And is there anything new that you're going to be doing in the next few years?
Yeah, I believe that now I moved into my new shop, I'm going to be doing a lot more work on my own bench and maybe have a little bit less people to. I'm hoping to do that. It's difficult for me to. I like teaching art to other people who've been working for me because it helps provide them a living in my area, in my community, and I get a lot of joy out of that. Even though out of selfish reasons, I would like to one day work by myself once again so that I can actually do whatever I want to do on my bench without having the pressures of running the business. employees and keeping them busy, getting projects to work on, stuff like that. So right now I'm limited on what I do. I do a few special projects here and there. It's not something I get done as a schedule that I have. So, my knives are still great demand. My work, my design work, everything. I'm learning more about my design. It's expanding more and more as I continue working at times. So maybe be one time that'll happen. But I doubt it. I just doubt it.
So how many employees do you have?
I hate working by myself.
Too quiet.
Yeah. Too quiet. That's where I do my best work, is actually when I got to shop all by myself. And nothing to think about.
So you can still do private, you'll still do
Yeah,
private?
I do accept them occasionally, yes. Sure do. Well, that's anything. If that's all, I think we're done for here. Unless Gene or anybody else would like to say anything. We're done.